What's up everybody, Ian here. Welcome to our part 2 of our rotator cuff series going over the exercises. Just a quick reminder before we get into this shoulder stuff, we've already talked about getting your rib cage first, addressing your breathing. We have a ton of resources on that. I'll link some of them below in the text box, and let me know if you have any questions about that. But we're gonna get right into the exercise demonstration. So we mentioned again in part 1 that those rotator cuff exercises with the TheraBand that everybody kind of thinks of, and oftentimes people don't do because they think it doesn't work, are actually phenomenal. And when you're really on the beginning stages, a little bit on the weaker side, using the TheraBand is awesome. Using a regular band or a stronger band is a great progression. And then I think long-term getting to cables would be a really great progression for you. So we're gonna start off with the cables, as you already know, starting with the band and even the TheraBand for all the stuff, classic, put it in the door and then pull on it. That works great. This can be a towel, this can be anything, yoga block, just something to put here to give someone some feedback. That's a great option. I just want to show you that. I'm not going to use it. If someone has a little bit of body control from doing cars, normally they'll be perfectly fine without it. If you see your elbow moving in and out like this, you're probably faking rotation at the shoulder. So that's when you would want to use something like this. Now, starting off on the lighter side, for most people using the cable on 5 pounds is going to be actually really heavy. What we want to think about is the motion that's happening is happening from our shoulder joint. So that means there's an X on your bicep. Again, you're not going into your side or away from your body. We're looking for you just to purely rotate. So it's almost like this is rotating in, this is rotating out. Your elbow is going to move a little bit, but again, we want it to stay relatively in the same spot so that the motion happens from the shoulder. As I go in towards my body, I'm internally rotating. The space behind my shoulder is opening up. As I go this way, the space behind my shoulder is contracting and closing down. The space in the front of my shoulder is opening up. You're going to need both of them. So we're going to start with the classic external rotation. Now, if I go like this and I run out of range of motion, which is going to be a lot of you guys because you're just starting off on this stuff or you're just refining it, then I can actually start my cable here. I don't need to try to get these extra degrees up against my body. So let's start with that. The cable is the height of my elbow. So it's really just a pull out and in. It's not up or down. If I start with the cable too low, I'm going to start pulling up. We don't want to see that. So here I am. I square my body forward. If you're having trouble squaring your body forward, make sure your big toes are there, and you can even put a block or something in between your knees. Try to keep your chest straight the entire time. If you need to, reaching your right arm forward can be very helpful here like this, okay? So elbow stays there. First, I'm gonna do an isometric. So you're just gonna work on, can you pull the cable? It's loaded, I should feel the back side of my shoulder, and I can just work isometrics here for 30 seconds. I can do 3 sets of 30 seconds. That's a great start for anyone, okay? Now, I wanna be strong through the full range of motion. So again, maybe people are a little bit limited. They don't really have this right here. So maybe they're right here. A lot of people are going to be here. So 30 seconds here, just holding this isometric. What I want to look for is that I'm not breaking at the wrist. See how my wrist is breaking? Oftentimes, especially with external rotation, people actually lose their pinky. So I want your pinky to stay on there. I want you to feel your whole entire wrist. There's research that shows the stronger our grip, the more we're actually intact with the hand and the wrist, the more recruitment we're going to get from the shoulder. So that's another good thing that you can focus on. So I'm holding here for about 30 seconds. This would be my external rotation end range. I did external rotation from my end range of internal rotation before. So there's our static version of that. Now, or isometric. So now I'm having this and I'm gonna bring it all the way across my body. So now the cable's pulling me in a different direction. I still have that same thing. This is really, really underrated because people have trouble finding the stuff deep in our armpit, which are some of the rotator cuff muscles. So being able to be here and squeeze that into our side, I often think about this when I see a football player getting tackled and they land on their chest, their arm gets dug into their side. Being able to be strong in this position, to be able to push out to the floor like we just did, and to be able to keep it tight and keep this range of motion is very important. So you just hold right here for 30 seconds. Again, general 3 sets of 30 seconds would be great. And then what I can do is I can take a little bit of a step away from it, and now it's gonna pull me into my end range, and now I can do an isometric from here. Again, keeping everything nice and straight. I'm locked in, I feel that working at its end range of external rotation, and I'm firing internal rotation into the cable. So that's how we're gonna do our isometrics for this. Now, you could also do the sleeper, the Americana. Those are other isometrics. If you've been training with us, you probably know about those. Those are also options here. I like to think about this cable stuff as below 90 degrees. So again, we talked about staying in your available range of motion. For the person that doesn't have really good shoulder flexion, doing these, which is gonna be a progression that we're about to show you, it's probably not gonna turn out too well. So spending a couple of weeks on this stuff is really gonna help them. Now, I wanna think dynamic control. That's a big word here, the control side of things. So I want to be able to pull that. I want to see that the X on my bicep is rotating. I'm really moving through the shoulder. I'm not flicking my wrist. I'm not cheating in any way. And then on the way back, I like 10 seconds. So I love a 3-second there, even though the number's not important on the way there. I do love a 10 count on the way back. So I really get that good feel of not this, but my shoulder rotating in the socket. And then 1, 2, 3, back to the end range, slow control all the way back. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Very important. When we talk about short and long ranges of motion, those are going to be the weakest. So I should feel relatively strong here, and then as soon as I get all the way out here, it should go, whoa, that's hard there. So what I want you to do is when you're doing your 10 count, have your first 5 seconds, try to keep them in your end range over here. So you're getting really good there. Then you get like about 3 seconds here, and then those last 3 can be when it's the shortest and you're pulling there, okay? So you're really strong here, you're really strong here, and strong meaning slow, and then the middle is still important, but it's not as important since it's not your end range. You should be technically a little bit easier in that spot. So that's how we're gonna do that. So eccentric loading, slowly controlling the whole entire range of motion. Again, 6 to 10 reps, and then try to get on that 10-second eccentric count. Now, I literally do the exact same thing here. So here I am, call that my end range, nice and tall. If I want, I can reach my arm out in front of me so that I stay there. I can give myself feedback here. I can put stuff between my feet so that I'm nice and straight as best I can. And now I'm gonna go ahead and pull all the way across. Again, you can shorten it up for however your shoulder can go. And then I'm just gonna slowly on a 10 count, it's pulling me into the stretch position of external rotation. My internal rotators are fighting under control. A good 10 count all the way out there, and then bring it all the way back. So it's quite literally the exact same thing, just getting pulled in the opposite direction. Same thing, 6 to 10 reps, working on 10 counts, maybe 2 to 3 sets makes a lot of sense too. Lastly with this, we went isometric, we went dynamic, and then we talked about a little bit of an eccentric grooving is another way to think about it. If I wanted to, especially if I'm returning to sport like baseball, like football, I'm throwing, I'm doing things like that, what we want to be able to do is handle a really heavy eccentric load. So what I would want to do is put the weight on something that was so heavy that I couldn't do this with it, but I can slowly resist it back. So what I would do is I'd put it on, say it's on 5 now, maybe I put it on 15, 20, something that's really, really difficult for me. And I would take both hands and I would assist it to here. And now I'm on my 10 count here. So I'm really working hard on slowly owning the 10 count on the way back, and this is supposed to be really heavy to where I couldn't even pull it back. I do that, I grab it, I assist it all the way back into that position of end range internal rotation, and then I own the entire thing all the way to my end range. If you're able to do this now, it feels good. Maybe you do 2 sets of the dynamic, and then you go make it a little bit heavier, have your last one, that overload of the eccentric. If you're doing it and it's not really too strong and you can easily come back, then you're not really doing the eccentric, that's fine. It's just more reps of what we talked about first. But that eccentric overload can be a great component to really get this shoulder back to sport, back to motions where you're really moving at fast pace, like I said, with throwing. So that's how we're gonna do this setup. We're gonna go ahead and show you another setup that's gonna be a progression where we go from down here, shoulder flexion, to actually working in here. That's gonna be a little bit closer to throwing and just an overall progression and range of motion. If you have any questions about this stuff, please let me know, and let's get into the next thing.